Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Megan, and today's video is actually going to be sharing a commonly asked question, which is why we homeschool. So I am really excited to be teaming up with my friend Anna. Her channel is Just Making It Work, and she is such a sweet mama friend of mine that I have met through this whole crazy YouTube journey, and she has so much wisdom, you guys. So she is also a mom of 6 kids like me, and they're kind of all more spread out, but she does still have little ones still as well. There is so much that I have gleaned from her, and she just brings me a lot of encouragement. So make sure that you head over to her channel after you watch this one and subscribe and check her out. Now let's talk about why we homeschool. Now, before I get into the why, I think it's important to understand how we got here in the first place, because this was not a choice that I would have made probably just right off the bat on my own. To give a little background, if you don't know much about me, I actually used to be a public school teacher. I was a product of public school, and when I went to college, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so when I did my first practicum though in college, I was like, maybe I want my kids to go to private school. Like maybe I want my kids to go to private Christian school. And I especially had that thought process once I got into my student teaching. Now, once I became a teacher, I did consider, if my kids are at the school I'm teaching at, then that's totally okay with me. But if they're not, then I do want them to go to private Christian school. That was kind of my mentality. And we were currently at a church at the time that had a private Christian school at it. And so that was just the easy answer for my husband and I. However, God had other plans. And I absolutely love my job as a teacher. It was not even on my radar. I mean, I wanted to stay home with my kids, but I also felt like I kind of had the best of both worlds, because I would have breaks with my kids, and I had the summer with my kids, and the weekends were pretty much guaranteed with my kids. And so it was nice to be able to have a profession where it was a little more family oriented. And so I loved my job, absolutely loved it. And I felt like it was very easy to have both my family life and my job life. At the time, we had 2 kids, but then my husband and I started the journey to become foster parents. And we did become foster parents. And I also was pregnant with our daughter. So when we got our foster placement, it actually turned into an adoption situation pretty much a month into his foster placement. So I was getting ready to have 2 babies in my life, along with the 2 boys that were under the age of 5. So that was going to mean 4 kids ages 4 and under. They were going to be 4, 2, 1, and newborn. Okay. And I was going to be teaching at a school at this point, at a school that was very high needs for me. And it became very overwhelming to even think about trying to balance school and family, let alone with 4 very, very young kids that weren't even school age. So at that point, my husband and I took the leap of faith. It was very obvious. There were lots of things that came up and lots of conversations. And we took the leap of faith that God had made it very clear to us that I needed to stay home with our kids. And so at that point is when I stayed home. And that is when our homeschooling journey began. However, I didn't think it was going to stay that way. My plan was only to take a year off and to go back to teaching once my oldest started kindergarten. However, God placed many people in our lives that actually influenced us into being more acquainted with homeschool. Because to be honest with you, my husband and I grew up with the mentality that homeschool kids were weird. I think that's the stigma that a lot of homeschoolers got at the time. And so it was just not even something that I wanted to even think about. But again, God had other plans. And so there were people in our lives that were close to us and at our church and things like that we crossed paths with, that really influenced us into leaning more towards that homeschooling kind of side of things. So I kind of did a test run that year that I took off. Tanner was in pre-K, so I figured, okay, well, we'll just give it a shot. And so I did homeschool him, and I absolutely fell in love with it and every aspect of it. And so we'll get into all of those aspects now when I talk about why we homeschool. So I would have to say the number one reason, and I know it's a very cliche answer among a lot of families, especially who are faith-based homeschoolers, and that is that we feel called by the Lord to do this with our family. Like, that is absolutely so true. It's something that is so strong, a desire that is so strongly pressed into our hearts and in our minds that it's just not even a question for us. But honestly, a big reason why we homeschool is because we have seen the benefits for our family. It has been incredible for us as a family, growth as a family. And I think that is something that is so, so special, because if you think about it, we only have 18 or 19, those are very short years of our children's lives. And if you've been a parent for any length of time, you know how fast and fleeting the years of childhood are. And so that is something that I never, ever, ever want to take for granted. And so the growth and relationship as a family is probably the biggest benefit and one of the biggest reasons why we homeschool. And with that comes the flexibility to do things like whatever field trips we want to do, or with scheduling and things like that, which has really been a huge benefit for us because of some of the different things that have come up in our family in the past few years. And I'll get more into that in a second. But really, honestly, it's the relationship as a family that really is so, so, so important to me. And I honestly didn't realize how important it was until I stayed home that first year with my kids and did that trial run of pre-K. And it was this bonding moment that I had never experienced before with my kids and with like our family as a whole, even though my husband works and doesn't get home until dinner time or whatever, but it gave us more time to be more intentional and to have more family time together. And that's really important to me. And it's become more important as the time has gone on, because my oldest is only 11. Well, he's getting ready to turn 11. And I already see, like, oh my goodness, he's going to be in middle school next year, and then comes high school, and then comes his adulthood. And I'm going to try not to get teary-eyed at that thought, but that has been something that as the years have gone on, it's pressed even more in me how important this time as a family is. So the other reason I mentioned the flexibility, and like with field trips and things like that, and with schedule, because we do homeschool pretty much year round. And, but this is definitely one of those God things, like there's so many things that I can look at in our life that we have experienced that at the time you don't understand, like, why these things happen and why God sets things up the way he does in your life. But then it's a few years down the road, you can look back and you can just see just how sovereign the Lord is over our lives. Our daughter, Lily, I had an incredibly difficult, not necessarily physically difficult for me. It became physically and emotionally exhausting. But more so just difficult, like mentally, honestly. mentally and emotionally, and then thereafter physically. She was actually born with a very rare defect. And we found out around the 20-week mark. It was actually 19 weeks. And so the flexibility for that, because looking back on that, I was like, there is no way that through my pregnancy with her that we could have maintained the lifestyle we were living, and me having to take off the time from work that I did. Like, that would have been incredibly difficult financially. Even though I was staying home, it still affected us financially. But it would have been even more so if I had been working, because when two people are working, it's a little bit different lifestyle than what you can give up when one of you is staying at home. And so, just looking back on things like that and knowing that it allowed our family the flexibility to focus on what we needed to at the time, but still to be able to meet my kids' needs academically by homeschooling them. And it just gave us that flexibility. And so that is something, that's an example of that flexibility, because you don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in our lives. It gave us the flexibility when that came up in our family's life. Okay, so another thing with the whole idea of the flexibility is that there are so many opportunities that my kids have had that I know that if they were in public school, they wouldn't have. And most of those are interest-led type learning. There are so many programs out there. And here's the thing. So back to those family relationships, and this goes along with flexibility, is the reality is when I stop and I think and I reflect on the fact that, what if my kids were in public school? I would wake up at 6:30 in the morning. I would drop them off at school. I would pick them up around 3:15-ish to, 3 o'clock-ish. If then, I would probably be working still if that was the case. And so it probably wouldn't be until around 5 or so when I actually get to pick them up. And then we come home and we cook dinner, do homework, and by that point, it's already time for bed again. And so there you go. There's an example of it just doesn't give the time that we want for those family relationships, and it gives us the flexibility to still have that family time, but still take advantage of those extra opportunities that are interest-led, whether it be sports or whether it be some kind of enrichment type activity. Another reason we homeschool is to be able to individualize our children's learning. That's just so important to me. One of my sons actually has dyslexia, and being able to honestly cater to what he needs academically and emotionally through whatever curriculum fits him best, or whatever level of math he needs to be on versus the level of reading he needs to be on. I can individualize all of that for him, especially and even talking about the different learning styles. I have 4 kids that are actually school age right now, and I think each one of them does a different language arts. Well, no, 2 of them do the same, but then there's 2 others that do something completely different for their language arts and reading. And that's the beauty of finding what works for each child and going with it. And then I mentioned at the beginning the aspect of our faith. So honestly, our faith and being able to disciple our children is super important to us. That goes along with the family time and the family relationships and stuff like that. But that is really, really important to us. So overall, I guess I would wind this whole thing up by saying that I'm just overall very, very thankful for this opportunity. I know that this is not something that every family is able to do. And it honestly came with a lot of sacrifice from us as well. If we want to get really technical and really personal about things, the career that I had was the one in our family that actually was the one providing both our insurance benefits at the time, but also I was making more money than my husband. So giving up that profession was kind of a big sacrifice and a big thing for my husband and I to let go of, because it required us to let go of a lot of things and to change our lifestyle and things like that. Not that it was ever extravagant. Trust me on that. We lived in a 900 square foot condo with 2 bedrooms up until we had baby number 5. So, but even still, it was still an adjustment. And that was one of the things that held us back from me ever staying home to homeschool our kids, was the financial aspect of things, because it is a big deal. You want to make sure that your family is provided for. But at the same time, especially here in America, there are so many things that we have that we really don't need, that we have in our minds that we think we need. And God has really revealed to me over the past 7 years how much I don't need some of those things. And so that has been a very big growth and learning experience, I think, for my husband and I as well. But overall, all that to say, I am very thankful for the opportunity to homeschool. It's not something that I take lightly, and I am thankful every day that I have this opportunity. I would love to know down below, why do you homeschool? What was the thing that sent you to the point of deciding why you homeschool? And if you don't homeschool, but you're thinking about it, I would love to know maybe what is holding you back from making that final decision. Thank you so much for your all's time today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you go check out Anna's video. It's linked down in the description below. Thank you all so much, and have a blessed day.